WVUT Vincennes, a part of Vincennes University Broadcasting.
Good evening. In the news tonight, today may be the first day of spring, but Old Man Winter isn't about to call it quits. And the Knox County Sheriff's Department says it has put out of commission the largest meth lab it's seen in over 3 years.
In sports, the NFL is looking for a new commissioner, and Casey Kane has won the rain-delayed NASCAR race.
Newscenter 22 is next. Today is the first day of spring, although you wouldn't know it by reading the latest forecast. A winter storm warning is in effect for the Vincennes area from 1 a.m. until 5 p.m. Tuesday. Between 4 to 8 inches of snow may fall. The Vincennes area will get about 4 inches. In addition, winds of between 20 to 25 miles an hour will cause some blowing and drifting of snow. The storm will begin after midnight as a mixture of rain, sleet, and snow, then change into all snow. Amy Reef will have more later in weather. The storm system headed our way has caused at least 2 deaths and buried parts of the plains under as much as 1.5 feet of snow. It's a snow day for a lot of school kids in South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and Colorado. Dozens of travelers in South Dakota are still stuck in a community center off the interstate after spending the night on cots. A leaking floodgate along the Brevoort levee in the Decker Chapel area of Knox County is causing major headaches for property owners. Tina Petz told the Knox County Commissioners today the problem started with the 2002 flood along the White River. During this last heavy rainfall, sandbags had to be placed around her home. In addition to the leaks, she says the gate can't be raised to allow water to flow back into the river. Petz has asked the Brevoort Levee Commission to either fix the faulty gate or install a flood pump. However, she says the commission is awaiting direction from the Corps of Engineers for over a year. Meanwhile, Petz says she will meet soon with an official with the State Department of Rural Affairs to discuss the issue. 76 property owners have signed a petition to get the Levee Commission to move on the problem. Only 3 area highways remain closed today due to the high water from recent heavy rains. In Martin and Lawrence counties, State Road 450 between US 50 and State Road 37 in Bedford is closed. In Martin County, State Road 550 is closed from US 50 in Lagodi to US 150 in Lacey. In Pike and Davies counties, State Road 257 is closed between State Road 356 and US 50 in Washington. The Knox County Jail has been a pretty busy place lately. There were 90 inmates being held there as of this morning. That's 5 over the soft cap of 85 agreed with the Indiana Civil Liberties Union until the county's new jail is built. The county's criminal justice coordinator, Bob Brody, says the jail's population hasn't been under 85 since March 18th. In addition to the 90 being held in the jail, another 8 are being held in out-of-county jails. 19 people were booked into the jail over the weekend. Knox County Sheriff Steve Luce calls it the largest meth lab bust in 3 years. Deputies found several pounds of pill dough, about 10 grams of finished methamphetamine, numerous meth ingredients, and $2,500 in cash early Friday morning at the home of Bradley Howder and Carmen Messinger at 1405 Miller Avenue in Vincennes. 2 children ages 12 and 16 were turned over to Child Protective Services. Howder and Messinger are charged with manufacturing and dealing in meth. Messinger is also charged with neglect of a dependent. Vincennes police arrested a man for arson this morning for setting a propane tank on fire at the CSX depot off Washington Avenue. 32-year-old Quinn Young is also charged with public intoxication and failure to appear in court. The Gibson County Sheriff's Department arrested a Princeton man Friday on 1 count of child molesting and 3 counts of sexual misconduct with a minor. 25-year-old Justin Gillian is charged in connection with incidents dating back to 2002 near Hazleton. He is being held in the Gibson County Jail under $70,000 bond. Gillian was scheduled to make a court appearance today. It comes as no surprise, but U.S. Representative John Hostetler announced today his intention to run for re-election to another 2-year term in office. The 5-term congressman will make announcement stops this week in each of the 18 counties that make up Indiana's 8th district. In Knox County, Hostetler will make his announcement at the Knox County Courthouse at 2 p.m. Thursday. A newspaper poll finds that Hoosiers prefer by a narrow margin 50 to 43% to keep state laws that ban most Sunday alcohol sales. Although lawmakers did not debate relaxing the Sunday limits during this year's legislative session, lobbyists for the retailers say economics might push the issue in the future. The so-called blue laws prevent retail stores from selling alcohol on Sundays, but don't restrict the sale in restaurants and bars. The Indiana legislature passed a bill this year designed to reduce the state's high school dropout rate by allowing students under 18 to drop out only because of health, financial, or court reasons. Studies say dropouts are more likely to wind up in prison or need public assistance than those who get a diploma. But critics say instead of passing laws, it's wiser to address the reasons students drop out. The National Dropout Prevention Center says some students leave school because they are bored or don't perform well academically or become pregnant. Others have no parental involvement in their education, have difficulty connecting with teachers, or rebel against strict school attendance policies or rules about suspensions. Indiana's home foreclosure rate hit a record high in the last 3 months of last year, when more than 7,000 Indiana homeowners faced foreclosures driven by layoffs, personal bankruptcies, and other factors. During the last quarter of 2005, the Mortgage Bankers Association says lenders began foreclosure proceedings on about 7,500 Indiana mortgage loans, or 0.98% of mortgage loans in service statewide. That rate was more than double the national rate and was Indiana's highest since the Washington, D.C. based association began keeping records in 1979. Indiana has led the nation in foreclosure proceedings since July 2004. Indiana boxing officials say they will review the death of a 34-year-old Evansville boxer who suffered a brain injury during a professional bout Saturday. Kevin Payne was pronounced dead yesterday following surgery at an Evansville hospital. Payne won an 8-round welterweight bout by a split decision over 26-year-old Ryan Maldonado Saturday at the Center in Evansville. He was helped from the ring after the fight and taken by ambulance to the hospital. Still to come on Newscenter 22, President Bush says the U.S. must stay the course in Iraq, and the Joint Chiefs Chairman says Iraqi troops can take more control this year if they have enough equipment and logistical support. Stay with us.
Tune in to WVUT this Monday night. At 8, watch Antiques Roadshow. American Experience at 9 investigates the murder of the century. On June 25, 1906, New York City's leading architect was shot to death while attending a musical performance at Madison Square Garden's Rooftop Theater. An eccentric heir to a railroad fortune had pulled the trigger. Then at 10, Time of Fear recalls the World War II internment of Japanese Americans in camps in southeast Arkansas. Monday night on WVUT.
City as a reason for hope that Iraq will someday be stable and free. Marking the 3rd anniversary of the Iraq War with a speech in Cleveland, the president said Talafar was once brutally run by insurgents loyal to al-Qaeda, but was recaptured last year by U.S. and Iraqi forces. Since then, schools and markets have reopened, water and power have been restored, police are again patrolling the streets, and according to Bush, Talafar is coming back to life. Bush says it shows the administration's clear hold and build strategy in Iraq is working. He says he understands why some Americans are disheartened by daily images of savage violence from Iraq. He says unlike bombings or beheadings, progress isn't easy to show in a short clip on TV news. But he says the progress is real and Iraqis know it. Senator Joe Biden says Iraq currently is in what he calls a low-grade civil war, and may be on the brink of a full-blown civil war when militias fully engage in the violence. The Democrat says the administration is to blame for what he calls an increasingly dismal outcome thus far in Iraq. As the Iraq War enters its fourth year, a former top U.S. official there says he thinks the country is encouraging freedom movements in the Middle East. Former Coalition Provisional Authority spokesman Dan Senor tells NBC it's easy to question the war when the costs and burdens are so obvious. While Senor says the benefits of invading Iraq aren't as clear, he insists it was worth it. A former State Department counselor in the Clinton administration says America has turned away from many top priorities, including countering terrorism. Wendy Sherman tells NBC Americans have already decided the war wasn't worth it. Indiana Senator Richard Lugar says he welcomes talks between the U.S. and Iran. He says it's critical for the Bush administration to engage the Middle East region, even countries it might disagree with, as the U.S. contemplates an exit strategy in Iraq. The Indiana Republican is chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He spoke on CNN's Late Edition yesterday.
I am not opposed to talking to anybody. As a matter of fact, if it will further American interest and further peace in the world. I think we have to understand that we are talking frequently to people with whom we have severe disagreement, whom we dislike, whom we may feel really are terrorists. But those are the folks that are in the world that we're going to have to influence. They have to hear from us, have to know of our strength of conviction.
Lugar says the talks may not necessarily be successful, but it will show the world that the U.S. has a sense of urgency with Iran. It's been nearly 3 decades since the U.S. had diplomatic ties with Iran. An FBI agent says Bureau headquarters repeatedly ignored his warnings that Zacarias Moussaoui might be a terrorist committed to hijacking an airliner. Under questioning by one of Moussaoui's lawyers, Agent Harry Samet says he wrote his superiors about Moussaoui, but no one ever called back. Prosecutors who want Moussaoui put to death contend that Moussaoui's lies during an arrest in August of 2001 stopped agents from foiling the September 11th plot. Before a break to consider prosecution missteps last week, Samet testified that Moussaoui's lies prevented authorities from securing a search warrant and picking up what might have been vital clues to the 9/11 attacks. Australian officials say they don't know how many people Cyclone Larry has left homeless, but they don't have any reports of people being killed or seriously injured. Still, it was the worst storm in decades. It tore up banana plantations, mangled buildings, and forced tourists to hunker down in hotels. Kate Scanlon has the latest.
The Category 5 cyclone hit the coast just after dawn. The storm surge wasn't as bad as feared, but winds up to 290 kilometres an hour ripped buildings apart and uprooted trees.
Oh my God, this is terrifying. It's just about stopped. It's gone down. I've got windows out, windows broken, trees down, the garage door's gone, fences down. I was in LA in an earthquake. This is worse.
Had a tree gone through the back of the house, and the windows at the back are probably about to explode because the pressure on them is so great. The gusts, like the one we're getting now, is just unbelievable.
Large areas are without power. Planes have been grounded and millions of dollars worth of crops have been flattened. At this stage, there are no reports of serious casualties. The cyclone's intensity has been compared to that of Darwin's Cyclone Tracy in 1974.
If you think of Category 5 cyclones, it's probably somewhere between Tracy and Katrina in aerial extent, so that the area damaged is probably greater than Tracy, but maybe Tracy was a bit more vicious in that smaller impact area that it had.
Larry has now been downgraded to Category 4 as it moves inland across the Atherton tablelands and is expected to drop to Category 3 by this afternoon. Scores of residents who abandoned their homes last night don't know what they'll be going home to.
It's a pretty strong house, so fingers crossed it's still there when I get home.
Well, there's nothing we can do.
And the emergency may not be over, with another cyclone forming in the South Pacific.
But only a Category 1 at this stage, and absolutely no threat to the Queensland coast at this stage. We're keeping an eye on it.
Residents are still gearing up for what's likely to be a multi-million-dollar clean-up operation from the worst cyclone in decades. Kate Scanlon, ABC News.
An attorney for Andrea Yates is pleased a Houston judge has postponed her capital murder retrial. George Parnham says he requested a delay since he'd be without two expert defense witnesses. Jury selection is now set for June 22nd with testimony to begin June 26th. She's again pleading not guilty by reason of insanity in the drowning of her children. The advocacy group Safe Kids Worldwide says that although 96% of parents believe they are using correctly the child safety seats they have in their cars, most of them aren't. Gary Nuremberg has the story of one woman who learned that lesson in a tragic way, a woman who now tries to help other parents avoid her pain.
Making a sandwich for you.
Joyce Farrell has her hands happily full with 3 kids these days.
Oh, let me get your face first. Turn around here like this.
But there is no way she can wash the memory of what happened 11 years ago out of her mind.
I had 2 children, 4 and 2, Laura and Amy. In 1995, we were in a car crash, and they were killed. I mean, they were not properly restrained, and I didn't even realize it.
Now, Joyce is a trained car safety seat technician who, with her husband, volunteers at clinics like these to help other parents install and use the seats properly.
It just meant so much to her that she's helping other kids, that they won't suffer like her children did, and that she wants to make sure that they're safer.
They are buoyed by stories like the one about the woman who showed up at their clinic with 2 seats not safely in place.
We correctly installed those seats, and the following day she was T-boned by a Mack truck. And the police report stated that the only reason that her one son was alive was because of the way the seat was installed.
A legacy for Laura and Amy, and a mom whose loss is helping other kids live. Gary Nuremberg, CNN, Washington.
Donald Trump has a brand new apprentice at home. The tycoon has told Imus in the Morning on MSNBC that his wife Melania gave birth to a baby boy this morning. It's her first child, his 5th. Trump says the new baby doesn't have a name yet, but is already making him feel younger. The youngest of his other kids is a preteen. The older ones are in their 20s. Melania Knauss-Trump is a model and actress who's been on the cover of Vogue and British GQ magazines. The couple married in January 2005. The first day of spring is here, but a gardening expert advises resisting the urge to start planting the garden. Burpee Seed Company President George Ball says people may be ready to plant, but the soil isn't. He says now's the time to spread mulch to choke off weeds and retain soil moisture. Ball says the mulch should be a fine hardwood variety. Also, the soil should get some plant ash to counteract salt, which can hurt roots if levels too high. Still to come on Newscenter 22, Amy Reef has the latest on that winter storm headed our way. Stay with us.
Austin City Limits celebrates 30 years featuring 2 singer-songwriters with distinctly different styles. Damian Rice.
It's not hard to fall. You float like a cannonball.
And an emotional journey from Patty Griffin.
Well, Amy, Mother Nature's mind changes every day. What has she decided today?
She sure does change her mind. And for the official start of spring, she has some snow in store for us. Good evening, everyone. As we take a look out to the tower cam, we currently have cloudy skies and 45 degrees. Wind is out of the east at 16 miles per hour, and the humidity is at 49%. The barometric pressure is at 30.02 and falling. Taking a look at some area temperatures, cloudy all around. Evansville, Indiana is at 41 degrees. Lagoti, Indiana is at 45 degrees. And in Illinois, Robinson is at 43 and Lawrenceville is at 45. As we bring in our national temperature map, Cooler temperatures in the northeastern part of the United States. Augusta, Maine is at 36 degrees. Now for your nation's cold spot, Denver, Colorado is at 20 degrees. If we take a look out to the west, temperatures are relatively cool out there as well since the storms have been pushing their way through. They're ranging in the 40s and the 50s. Currently, Seattle, Washington is at 50 degrees, and your nation's hot spot is in the deep south as we have Brownsville, Texas at 92 degrees. As we bring in our surface map, it's relatively dry and cool for the northeast with some scattered flurries in the New York area. Other than that, relatively calm for the folks up there. In the south, we can see this system continuing to push its way through, generating some wind, rain, and hail, and possibly even tornadoes, expected to move its way out to the east. In our neck of the woods, we have some rain and snow also moving its way through, generating snow up to 15 inches. That's continuing to push its way to the east. We'll be seeing that sometime this evening. And out on the west coast, as one system moves out, another one is pushing its way in. That'll also be making its way to our neck of the woods over the next few days. Now for a look at your forecast. Tonight, rain and snow with a low of 31 degrees. Tomorrow, snow, high of 33. Tomorrow night, clear with a low of 21. And your extended forecast, Wednesday, sunny, high of 42, low of 25. Thursday, partly cloudy, high of 43, low of 29. Friday, mostly cloudy, 44 for your high and 30 for your low. Kurt, that's a look at your weather.
Thanks, Amy. Still to come on Newscenter 22, NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue plans to step down this summer. Kristen Miller will have the details coming up in sports.
A masterpiece.
It was love at first sight.
A match made in paradise.
Almost too good to be true.
She's not like your ordinary English girl. She's independent. She's spirited.
But can paradise survive in the real world?
How could she betray me with this man?
You don't trust me at all, do you?
From the novel by Anthony Trollope.
He's changed.
He knew he was right on Masterpiece Theater.
NFL Commissioner to retire. Good evening, everyone. For TV 22 Sports, I'm Kristen Miller. Longtime NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue is retiring. The league has announced that the 65-year-old will step down this July. Tagliabue took over in 1989 when he succeeded Pete Rozelle. He held the job for 16 years and hung on long enough to complete the recent labor talks. Some of the leading candidates to replace Tagliabue are Roger Goodell, the NFL's Chief Operating Officer, and Atlanta General Manager Rich McKay. Joey Harrington's tenure as the quarterback of the Detroit Lions is over. Coach Rod Marinelli told reporters today that a decision to move on has been made and that Harrington is no longer with the club. Harrington will be replaced by either John Kitna, who was signed by the team last week, or Josh McCown. Pole sitter Casey Kane is the unofficial winner of the Golden Corral 500 at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. The win is the second of his career. Mark Martin was the runner-up, with Dale Earnhardt Jr. third. Bill Lester, the first African-American NASCAR driver to compete in a Cup race in 20 years, was 38th. The race was held today because of rain yesterday. George Mason and Bradley are headed to the Sweet 16. North Carolina and Pittsburgh are not. 11th seed George Mason stunned the defending national champ Tar Heels 65-60 in the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Lamar Butler's 18 points showed the way for the Patriots, who became the first school from the Colonial Athletic Association to reach the round of 16 since 1988. The Tar Heels faded down the stretch, missing 4 straight shots and repeatedly fouling. Bradley started Sunday's upset specials by knocking off 5th seeds Pittsburgh 72-66. The Braves become the first 13th seed to move into the third round of the NCAA tournament since 1999. Patrick O'Brien had 28 points for the Braves, who face top-seeded Memphis next. The Tigers brought Bucknell back to earth whipping the Bison 72-56. Antonio Anderson had 13 points and Joey Dorsey added 12. Georgetown joined the surprise party by ambushing second seed Ohio State 70-52. Sophomore center Roy Hibbert had 20 points and 12 rebounds to lead the way for the 7th-seeded Hoyas. The Hoyas took command early, riding 57% shooting to a 13-point halftime lead. The Buckeyes never got closer than 6 points the rest of the way. Big Ten Player of the Year Terrence Dials scored 19 for the Buckeyes, who finished the season with a 26-6 record. Connecticut held off Kentucky 87-83 in the first meeting between the basketball-rich schools. Marcus Williams scored 20 points, including 4 free throws in the final 30 seconds as UConn advances to play Washington Friday. Patrick Sparks tied a career-high 28 points on 10 of 16 shooting for the Wildcats, who failed to advance past the second round for the third time in the last 12 seasons. College basketball fans have a few days to cool off after that wild weekend of action. Play resumes in the men's NCAA tournament this Thursday with games in Atlanta and Oakland. The 2 games in Atlanta will feature Duke against LSU, with Texas facing West Virginia. In Oakland, Memphis goes against Bradley and UCLA meets Gonzaga. Play in the Washington and Minneapolis regionals will start Friday. In the NBA yesterday, Paul Pierce scored 22 points as the Boston Celtics beat the Indiana Pacers 103-88. Indiana shot 67% in the opening period, but shot 28% over the 3 final periods as the Celtics came back and eventually took control. Boston trailed by 12 after 1 quarter, but Pierce and rookie Ryan Gomez had 7 points each in the second period, and the Celtics tied it at 53 at the half. Peja Stojakovic led Indiana with 16 points. Pacers forward Austin Crozier missed Sunday's game against the Celtics because of effects of a concussion. Pacers spokesman David Benner says that he will be out indefinitely. Crozier missed 18 games following the concussion during a game at Washington on January 31st. 2 teams battling for postseason NBA berth will meet tonight in Houston as the Rockets entertain the Los Angeles Clippers. The Rockets, who have lost 4 straight, are struggling, while the Clippers are 12 games over 500. The Boston Red Sox and Cincinnati Reds have pulled off a trade. The deal sent right-handed pitcher Bronson Arroyo to the Reds for outfielder Willie Mo Peña. Arroyo was 14-10 with a 4.51 ERA last season, while Peña hit .254 with 19 home runs and 51 RBIs last year. As part of the deal, the Reds are also getting some cash from the Red Sox. The inaugural World Baseball Classic comes to an end tonight in San Diego when Japan faces Cuba. Team Cuba advanced with a 3-1 win over the Dominican Republic, while Japan blasted South Korea 6-0. The highly hyped U.S. team will be at home watching on TV. And Kurt, that's a look at sports.
Thanks, Kristen. Still to come on Newscenter 22, we'll check out who did what at the box office this weekend. She shaved her head for the role, and it looks like it paid off. The Natalie Portman movie V for Vendetta debuted at #1 at the weekend box office, taking in an estimated $26 million. Last week's #1 failure to launch slipped to 2nd place. And that's all for this evening. For Amy Reef and Kristen Miller, I'm Kurt Maddox. Good night.